What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I have a truly special guest. I met him way back in 1995 when he and I were pro Magic players before there was a Magic the Gathering Pro Tour, although he is a Pro Tour winner. And he's gone on to work at all sorts of companies that you've heard of, working on games that you love. In fact, he and his team made the best game you've never heard of, an incredibly popular and beloved genre. It is my pleasure today to welcome to the channel my dear friend, Matthew Place. Good to see you, man.
Brian?
How are you?
Here.
Yeah, how are you?
Man, doing great. What's that awesome game? What's the one you're referring to?
The thing is, you worked on so many games over the years that it's hard for me to really differentiate. But the game that I'm talking about is a game that is still whispered about kind of in the corridors of game developers. We talk about it all the time in our meetings, actually, at Card Advantage. And that game is the masterpiece that you and your team crafted a number of years ago called Storybook Brawl. Storybook Brawl is, in my opinion, the best game, the defining game in the auto battler genre. And in fact, you can still see its ripples across the whole ecosystem, particularly in Hearthstone Battlegrounds, but I imagine in other games as well. Incredible innovations. Unfortunately, the game doesn't exist anymore, but there's tons to talk about, honestly. I'd like to hear a little bit at first about your own background as a game player. You and I are almost the same age. We're both very solidly Gen X. And I'm curious to know, when did you first have your first memorable gaming experiences, particularly digital?
Memorable gaming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember, I grew up right when Pong was transitioning into combat, was transitioning into a lot of those early Atari 2600 games, if people know those. I remember really wanting that, not having an Atari, right? Eventually graduating when I was in 6th grade, getting the Nintendo, right? Which looked like the arcade. Totally obsessed with Mario. So Mario was the first one where I was like, trying to turn in whatever I could, aluminum cans to get quarters. Wanted to play as much Mario as I could. At first, it was only at like gas stations and arcades, but eventually we got it at home. But
Which Mario are we talking about?
This is Super Mario Brothers. So this is the first Mario that people would call a Mario game, right? Before that was not Super Mario Brothers, which is Mario Brothers, which is totally different, right? It's just a platform jumper, one screen, single scene. Also a good game, but nothing like Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers blew people away, right? Huge game. Yeah.
I'm trying to recall that, actually, because I think my first encounter with Mario, like so many other people, was Donkey Kong, I guess, was when he was sort of officially appeared, although I don't even think he had a name in that game. He was just the character that you played. Yeah, just a jump man. Exactly. Yeah. And then they gave him a name later on. But my first experience with Super Mario Brothers was actually on the Nintendo rather than in the arcade. Was that the experience you shared as well?
No, so I started playing it at the Circle K's and other random gas stations plus the arcade.
Yeah.
So what year would this have been? I don't know. Maybe sometime in the 80s, but not exactly sure when, right? And then fast forward a year or two, then the Nintendo comes out and you're able to play at home, which just blew my mind, right? Because it was way better than Atari and all the other, ColecoVision, just way better graphics.
Totally.
And hundreds of hours, even though wasn't alive for that many hundreds of hours at this point, but yeah, hundreds of hours into the game, loved it, went crazy for it. Yeah.
Just as an aside on the subject of Super Mario Brothers, have you had any experience? Have you rubbed up at all against the speed running community for that game?
Just a tiny bit. I've seen it on Twitch a little bit, but not really. But I know it's hilarious. I actually remember. I don't know how much they use warp zones in those. I assume a lot, but I remember being a kid and seeing the warp zone for the first time at a friend's house on the Nintendo. And it was like my reality got flipped upside down, right? Like, just what is going on? There's a negative zone, right? Just blew my mind.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, we can talk about that too. I think that's the first kind of childhood experience with the idea of emergent gameplay, particularly in the case of what's so interesting is that there were intended warp zones in the original Super Mario Brothers. They're hidden, but you can find them. And when you first find them, like, wait a minute, if I jump through this block, I can run across the top of the zone.
Right.
I didn't even know you could go up there. And whoa, there's 3 pipes and they lead to crazy places. In modern speedrunning, they have the emergent gameplay version of that. They actually have stuff that are de facto warp zones that were never intended by the developers, that have to do with pixel perfect jumps that allow them to clip into the geometry of the level and have the game move them across gigantic, vast areas. It's almost like game has wormholes in it.
Oh,
But the
where they just slide through the
yeah,
whole.
but the wormholes are protected by the graphical fidelity of the engine. It's
Mhm.
so bizarre. So they fall inside the pixels and the game doesn't know what to do. And so it kind of processes their character and spits them out into this unusual place. And whenever anybody finds one of those moments, the whole speedrunning community takes a quantum leap forward.
Right. And it's funny too when you hear about like a secret level. Like today, if you heard about a secret level, I could just go, if you're telling me about it, I could just go look it up on Google. Oh, is there a secret level? Back then, it was like word of mouth. It sounded like a lie. 3 months later, I see it for myself and go, oh my God, they were telling the truth, right? Because we didn't have internet. We had magazines. What was it? Power. Yeah, the Nintendo magazine.
Nintendo Power.
Nintendo Power. Yeah, I had the 2 words. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, poured over that whenever we got that in the mail. Yeah, it was awesome.
Did you play
That's
Metro?
something we actually share too, right? We were talking about this earlier. We were kind of born at the perfect time, right? Pong gets admitted, and we decide to be born so we can go through all the stages of all the video games, right? The terrible block graphics.
I can't imagine, honestly, a better era to inhabit for what I care about. And it's something interesting. I mean, we'll talk a lot more about game design in general, because you are an absolute God tier, S tier game designer. The reason why you're a game designer, I think, and such a good one, has a lot to do with what we're discussing here. It's this idea that you and I have been around for roughly 50 years. And in that span, we have seen the complete evolution of the form. I want to know something. When did you first realize that you were a game designer? What was the moment where you're like, man, I like doing this. I want to do this.
Yeah. I don't believe that I thought I was for a very long time. Not till I actually started working on Magic, right? Like a lot of kids, I did hey, Monopoly could have more houses. And I don't know if you ever did that, Brian, but hey, what's beyond a hotel, right? We had a lot of fun with that. And then I remember after playing Magic, just a year in, maybe 2 years in, met Mike Elliott, who would go on to make some of the best Magic mechanics. Talk about a controversial figure, right? Mike Elliott, very good at game design, sometimes has interpersonal challenges, but made slivers in Magic. If people know slivers in Magic, this is the guy who, made it one of the best mechanics ever for Magic. I was talking with him about game design. And so I started poking around. I'm like, oh, what if we had a grid? Which our friend Eric actually made a Magic-like with a grid. But yeah, started playing around with it. Very bad games, terrible, not fun. I didn't understand getting all the pieces, setting up the dominoes so they all fall together. You know what I mean? When you're new to game design,
it just all
seems like it should work, and then it doesn't, right? Because, actually people making games actually know what they're doing.
Can you explain that to me in terms of what you mean by setting up all the dominoes so that they fall in the right order? Can you give me an example of when that's done well in a game versus badly?
Yeah. So I'm sure we've all done this, right? You open up a board game and there's all these rules and you're kind of just questioning, why would I ever do this play? Or why would I ever go for this square? Right. And the incentives are not obvious. Now, sometimes that's because, we don't understand the game. Right.
Yeah.
But other times it's because it's terrible game design. And that's something that, I'm not going to call any individual out, but it is true. Tons of the games on shelves are terrible. Right? Like there's just so many mistakes in these games. And you kind of have to, I'm sure we've all done this too, right? You kind of have to adjust the rules for your household, right? Just to make sure you're having fun and not playing by their rules that sometimes just don't make sense or have bad incentives, or why wouldn't I just do this thing that goes infinite? It still happens to me today, right? I make a card. I'm like, oh, this could be really cool. And then it'll get you this. And it's like, well, doesn't that go infinite with this other card? Oh yeah, you're right. That would have broken our game. Let's not ship that. So those pitfalls are easy to fall into. And when I was new, I definitely was not good at spotting those, even though I was pretty good at games at the time. You get better at that. You train your intuition, come up with heuristics to kind of go, hey, this is a danger zone. Is it worth it? When it comes to infinite combos and whatnot. But yeah, just, right incentives. I think another big piece of that too is, does this resonate, right? I think we've played games where just the flavor meets the mechanics in a way that makes you so happy that you're doing what you're doing. It's like, oh yeah, well, of course my goal is to do this thing that would make sense to me. And then the mechanics all work out, or the results, just kind of reward you for doing things that feel correct in that world or whatnot. Yeah.
I like an example of what you're describing, but I think just to step back a little bit about the idea of dominoes falling into place. Do you have a particular idea of a game where you've played and the dominoes didn't fall into place, where you're doing something and you work towards a specific goal, and then when you arrive at the goal, either it's sort of a that's it kind of situation.
Yeah, what's a good example of that? I feel like that's happened a lot in different card games, right? Where you have, oh yes. So let's see. People may not know this game, The Spoils. So this is kind of a funny one, right? So you got all these cards in The Spoils that say they do stuff, but you come to the game with 2 inherent powers. I believe one is 3 mana, draw a card. You just have that. Polycast, right? You can do that as many times as you want. And you have 4 mana, play an extra resource. So you have all these cards in your hand that say do things, but they're not as good as just the inherent abilities in the game. And my buddy, Paul Sotosanti, awesome designer over at Riot, to this day, I believe, he won their first tournament for like an Xbox and a whatever cash prize, just using the core inherent mechanics, then later playing the cards in his hand. Well, of course, you would expect, you want to play the cards in your hand. So, so you want to make sure that what you're creating and what you're trying to talk people into, when they do it, they feel rewarded, right? They feel like, oh, I did the right thing and it's working out.
I'm curious to know, just to ground this in something that's a little bit probably more familiar to people who might be listening. Tell me some bad game design in Monopoly. Everyone's pretty much played Monopoly at some point. I'd like you to give me your 3 worst, bottom 3 design mistakes in Monopoly.
Right. So one is the tax being complicated math, I think is a interesting design. And one way to measure that being
the 10% income tax card is what you're talking about.
Yeah. Right. So you got to do this, do the mathematics to get to the right answer. Not everybody at the table feels confident that you did it the right way. Slows things down, a little bit of argument. And, one way it's not a great rule is sometimes people just say, we just pay 100 or whatever, right? We just skip it.
Yep.
I think Monopoly actually is great overall, by the way, right? So controversial. A lot of people, same with, what am I trying to say? Candyland, right?
Yeah.
Is this a game? Is a debate, right? Are you making decisions that are meaningful, right? And Monopoly obviously has more decisions than Candyland, but both are light when it comes to, the types of games that, that we work on, right? Monopoly also has you kind of, I'm behind. Can I even imagine getting back into this game? What is the scenario where I get lucky and come out of this hole, right? And often it's not that. It's just I'm rolling till I'm dead, and let's see that happen, which is huge, right? If I could share top 5 game design, especially the types of games you and I play and work on, it is where's the hope? Why are people playing out to the last moment, or is it over before it's over, right? We've all played games where it's over before it's over. It doesn't feel good. But even better is, a chance, or I have an idea on how I could get back into this. Or if I could draw that one perfect card, I would win, right? Monopoly does not have that very good at all, right? Another problem with Monopoly is it is a bit too complex. Like, how does this work? What if you run out of money? What does it mean to mortgage? How do I unmortgage, right? It's rules that people forget. And so they start playing by their own rules.
Yep.
And you could argue that's the worst rule in Monopoly is a lot of the home rules that make the game 3 hours later, we don't see how this can even end, right? Whether or not I have a chance, just how do you even finish the game? But all that said, if you play by the rules, there's a lot of goodness in Monopoly. And the idea, it's funny, you and I play a lot of auto battlers. This collect 3 mechanic that is so good in auto battlers, you could actually relate that to Monopoly, right? I have to get all 3 of the blues or the purples or whatever, because purples just have 2. It's a good mechanic, right? Collecting is something that resonates with us, right? And that's a great example of what I was talking about before. Make your game mechanics kind of line up with what your players expect to be good. Have your game mechanics reward that, right? Even before they know the game fully, even before they've, come anywhere even 1% close to mastering the game. Is their intuition on how they should play kind of lining up with what the game rewards and incentivizes?
I see exactly what you're saying. It's a long and technical explanation. It's interesting that when the way that you describe games and both the way that you experience them as a player and also specifically as a designer is very informative. It comes through in how you describe them and your sort of systematic way of breaking it down. And it is definitely high tier. It's the kind of thing where you have to not only be paying a lot of attention, but you have to be familiar with how these things are done in order to almost even understand it. It's interesting on the subject of Monopoly. There is a very popular game design course that's offered here in Washington, run by our colleague, Jay Schneider.
Yes.
Jay Schneider's actually the guy. Yeah, amazing guy. And also I kind of regard him a little bit. I'm not sure if he enjoyed this comparison so much, but I told him that he reminded me a little bit of Varys from Game of Thrones, minus the plotting murders and so on. But he's sort of the master of whispers around Seattle. He kind of knows everybody.
Yeah.
And if you need somebody to fill a role at your studio, Jay definitely has a short list already ready to go.
I literally this morning recommended somebody reach out to him for game design classes.
Got to talk to Varys. So in this case, Varys has been teaching, okay, I'll just call him Jay. Jay has been teaching this course alongside a bunch of other serious game design badasses for years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And one of the projects that they do as a thesis project in that course is they have groups team up in groups of 3 or 4 or 5, and they remake Monopoly. They make their own version of Monopoly to specifically address the deficits of the game, to preserve the good and so on in it. Because Monopoly is an amazing game. And the fact that it was created when it was created, I mean, is the game like 100 years old at this point? I don't know when it was actually made, but it might be 100 years old at this point.
I wouldn't be surprised.
The fact that 100 years ago they were able to create a game that people still enjoy and play today with the degree of complexity that it has is amazing.
Oh yeah.
While still being fundamentally imperfect. And so Jay's students go and remake the game. There's all sorts of different iterations of it. And every now and then, every 4 or 5 years, someone comes up with a version of Monopoly that's amazing. And occasionally publishers and stuff get interested in that, which is really quite incredible. You and I share a past as Magic the Gathering players. I'm curious to know, when you did this kind of game design quality that you had, when it started to kind of direct towards Magic, and specifically, you made a choice at some point where you're no longer wanted to play Magic competitively, because obviously to go work at Wizards means to turn in your badge and your gun, basically. You're going to go work in the peacemaking industry now. And so
it's true. So if we rewind to 95 through 97, you and I, right, we would go across the globe playing in these tournaments, right? Seems like every time I didn't make top 8, you did, which was great, right?
Our team was so amazing. Team Amnesia. So look up the results. Team Amnesia. Yeah. Insane.
Yeah. And then so I won the Pro Tour in Mainz, Germany. And I kind of lost it after that. I was like, okay, did it, right? You and I used to say, one of our ways to talk about, wouldn't it be great if, we'd say, man, that'd be like winning a PT. Yep. Right. That was just kind of our way of saying things would be great. And then afterwards, I just kind of lost the fire. It's like, okay, what's the next level? Which is a bit sad, because that was us back then, right? That was totally, we had this immense passion. If somebody beat us, right? Our competitive instincts were, how dare this person think that they deserve to beat us? Let's play. Let's play for ante now. Let's keep upping the ante. And to compare being good at Magic to game design, one of the things that's great about Magic, right, and chess and all these PvP competitive games that you can replay, is you get into great feedback loops. And that's something I would recommend to anybody who's, anywhere on their game design, right? Just make sure you're always in a good feedback loop. One of the things that, we play Magic players like this, right? Or any game, right? Somebody goes, oh, well, you beat me because I was distracted by the show that I was watching. Or you beat me because you have better cards than me or whatever, right? That is not healthy, right? That does not get you to the next level of oh, how can I do better? What am I missing? What's my mistake, right? What does this other person know that I don't know that could try to understand and help me?
Yeah.
Which I think is one of the assets that I have, right? Just a quick story. I go to, you and I must have both been there, but we weren't at this exact same moment. Go to 1996 Origins Nationals. And I get there, and a Finnish guy whose name I don't know, but he clearly was friends with a guy we do know very well, Tommy Hovey. He says, I'll play anybody here who's playing the common deck, right, Necro, for $100 ante. And just the way he said it, I was like, this guy's not joking. He means it. What is his deck? Hey, man, can I look at your deck? And he shows me his deck. He's like, yeah, sure, have a look. It was nothing like anything we'd seen, right? This turbo stasis is what.
Explain it real quick. Obviously, I'm familiar with it, but give a quick 2-minute TLDR, 1-minute TLDR of how this deck worked. By the way,
yes,
just to contextualize this is 1996. It was a period of time known as the Necro Summer. Right. Necropotence had been solved as a strategy, and it was so hyper dominant. The deck was strong enough to beat the deck. the 1996 version of the deck, the Type 1 version with 5 Moxes and Lotus and Soul Ring, got its
Type 1
ass
versus Type 2.
consistently kicked by this Type 2 deck that ran 4 copies of Necropotence and Nivenral's Discs and Hymn to Torak, and it was such a nightmare. So that was the deck that everybody knew was the best. And this guy was challenging people playing that deck $100 a game. Why? Tell me about the deck.
Why? Right. And so, and I believed him, right? He didn't seem like he was full of it. And so, was very curious, looked at the deck. So now I have this like mental image of him fanning through the deck, and I kind of get it. And the deck was totally different than other decks, right? No creatures, right? I was blown away so before I met you, by the way, I got to see the deck, right? Back in 94, 95. And you only had 2 creatures. Blew our mind back then. Well, this deck had 0 creatures, right? It had what I believe to be the worst card ever printed, to Spot Acceptor. If people look it up, it taps to destroy a card. It's only a 1-mana artifact. Sounds pretty good, right?
One of your own cards.
Your own permanents. Yeah. So quite bad. Amazing, this deck. So we rebuild the deck that night, right? We start playing it, learning from this guy, right? Turns out it's really good. 2 of us make top 4 in nationals of the 3 or 4 of us that played. Super fun. Super
outrageous.
But just kind of shows it's a great example of just, making sure you're open-minded, right? Making sure just because everybody thinks there's one way to do something, got to keep your mind open, stay in that feedback loop. Yeah.
So how did that translate to your beginnings at WotC? One of the quotes that I've repeated a bunch of times, both on this channel and in plenty of other contexts, is that Mark Rosewater, who's now been working in R&D for 30 years, I believe he joined Wizards of the Coast in 1996, around the time, if you remember, Mirage was debuted in 1996, and it has a card called Morrow in it, which is named after Mark. And they didn't name that card after him when he wasn't working for the company.
Oh, that's a coincidence?
Well, I mean, that's the timing. Mark designed Morrow, I believe. He designed the card himself, I think, and it's named after him. M-A-R-O, his initials, basically.
That's what I assume. Yeah.
30 years ago, Mark has worked alongside the absolute pinnacle game designers of the modern era, Richard Garfield among them. And Mark has consistently said that his favorite designer to ever work with is you, Matt Place.
Awesome.
Said that repeatedly in interviews. So,
well, I love Mark. Yeah, and it's funny. My path to Wizards is the 2 guys you just named, by the way, Mark and Richard. But yeah,
what is it about you that makes him say that? If you had to summarize again, and speaking objectively, it's not boasting to speak objectively in this way. Why does he say that about you? What did you bring to the table that was so unique as a game designer?
Why do I think that? And you want me to boast? Okay, time to brag. No,
brag it up.
Why do I think that? Well, so I loved working with Mark too. Mark is a controversial character, right? He is powerful, loud.
Never more now than now.
His opinion, even more now. Yeah, his opinion, if he doesn't agree with you, he is not backing down, right? He's ready to explain it the 19th time to you. And kind of similarly to Tommy Hoey's buddy, right? Who has this deck that he's so confident in that can beat Necro. Mark's confidence in his, kind of depth of understanding is just such a great curiosity to me, right? Like, I just want to listen to it. Another one person like that, I had a bunch of those at Wizards when I first got there. Richard Garfield, of course, although we worked on other things more together, hung out together. But for Magic, Bill Rose was another one of those people that just knew so much, and I just wanted to absorb. Robert Gutierrez, basically the historian of the first, 5 of the first 7 years of Wizards of the Coast. And he will just talk to you for hours and you can just listen to him. Love it. Rosewater and I think worked well together because, we're both trying to learn and get through it. And when I disagree with Mark, he would often have this happen, right? Mark's like, no, you're wrong. It's this. And I'm like, Mark, I don't think so because this. He's like, no, you're wrong. And we would just go back and forth. And on the 4th time, he would go, okay, if you're right, then, and now we're on to the next thing, right? So we can get through it, right? Not everybody had that relationship with him. I'm sure, a lot of people do now, but they're clearly very good at what they do at Wizards of the Coast these days. We were also there in a time when it was a bit more Wild West of design, which is, by the way, I think a lot of why I was attracted to design, right? Why I was attracted to Magic, why I was attracted to Street Fighter, right? All these different games that were competitive and you could win at because it was this unknown space. And Magic was very much that when I got there, right? I got there on the tail of all the mistakes we made with Skull Clamp and artifact lands with affinity, et cetera, right? Especially once all 3 sets are out, obviously. Disciple, all those cards, if people know these cards, they're only a million years old now. Big mistakes, not very fun, create a lot of hopeless situations, right? It's not just that it's powerful, it's also not fun to play against. And that's key, right? We can go through different times in Magic where the most powerful deck was actually pleasant, right? Or less unpleasant.
Give me an example.
Give me an example. Winter Orb, Stasis, right? Affinity. These are just like, I'm sick of playing against.
Can you give me an example of a fun deck to lose to?
Yeah. Decks. So I'm going to argue this one. There's a little bit of my own bias in here.
Obviously.
Jund. So Jund was generally agreed to be the best, right? There was some counters and, Baneslayer Angel. So this is what year? Maybe 2006, 7, somewhere around there.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Somewhere in there. One thing that's great about Jund is if I have a way to stop your card, if I have a 3/4, lifelink, if I have a some sort of kill spell, right? If I have a Baneslayer in play, suddenly the tables have turned, right? As opposed to Stasis, right? As opposed to Winter Orb, right? Like, what can I do to get out of this? You're tapping one land, so the way Winter Orb works, the way Stasis works, is very often you cannot get out of this is the whole point,
right?
They have a way to prevent you from ever generating a mana again, right? Very unfun.
Yeah.
Affinity was, I'm going to kill your stuff, and you just have infinite, right, ways to finish me off, right? Because I killed this, but you still have Blinkmoth Nexus, and the counters move over there, or whoever I block, it doesn't matter because everything's going to go to the other one. And then, even though I'm at 17, I'm going to take 10 from that big creature, and I also took the 2 disciples, dealt another 30 to me, or whatever, right? Yeah. It's just, how do I win this, right? You'd have people showing up in tournaments during Affinity with 12 main deck shatters. I forget his name, the 5-mana 4/6, whatever he was, green creature that was the Abyss for artifacts, and just
that guy, the slug, the Molder slug.
Yes, right. Which should have been good against an all artifact deck, right? It's destroying their lands.
Way too slow though.
But right, so that hopelessness is again part of this, right? So, anyways, to go back to the Mark Rosewater. Rosewater's great. He would let me tease him, make fun of him, and it all worked out, right? We didn't take anything personally. We were always ready to move forward. We both operate on instinct in a different way. Rosewater will tell you this. He's actually very analytical. If people don't think that, they're wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Talk to Rosewater for a while. He's very analytical and very wise, but also his main asset is just his instincts are so good, right?
Yeah.
And one of his instincts was someday, this is a funny story to me, someday we should do what became Zendikar. So how good is Zendikar? I think it's a masterpiece, right? If you look through Magic's history, some blocks, some sets upgraded the quality of design forevermore, right? Mirage, which you were just talking about.
Yep.
Huge for Magic Draft, right? Oh, it blew our minds, Brian, right? You made top 8 in that draft Pro Tour, I remember.
So.
And then Zendikar, he was like, Sunday. He had this plan for maybe 3 or 4 years before we actually started working on Zendikar. He wanted lands to matter. And every time he said it, I had to, this is just me, right? Make fun of him, right? Lands are finally going to matter in Magic. Nobody's wanting to put these in their decks yet. You're going to make them matter, Mark. Can't wait. But it turned out to be a great set. And so many of if you guys could see our original card files, terrible ideas. Landfall used to be discard a land to get those effects. Is that more fun or less fun?
Discard a land instead of playing a land.
Yes. And the day we switched that, how much better did the set get?
Can you only do it once a turn? Because it could be better if you could trigger it a whole bunch of times.
There was different ways. Some, I remember, were coming to play. You may discard a land to get something, right? And the whole point was noble, right? Hey, we're getting flooded in draft. Hey, what if you could run 19 lands and justify it in this format? Which you kind of still could, right? With landfall, right? For the same reasons. Some of them were
a couple,
pay W, discard, get some effect, right? So you could do it multiple times if you had white mana, but
a couple would be very.
We switched for that pretty early on, and
like
that got 5,000 times better.
Like the landfall guy that makes, I think it's 6/6 or something. Like that guy might actually be better if you could just discard lands to him, like play him, discard 4 land. I have 24 power.
Right, you just unload in a single turn.
Exactly.
It's way more fun when it's just I was going to play a land anyways.
Exactly, just a freebie. Yeah. So remind me again of the exact years you were at WotC, and on top of that, what was your crowning achievement while you were there, in your opinion, in terms of a set that you led, probably, that was just triumphant? Yeah,
so I started in September 2003, officially left, I think, March 2010. So
almost
7 years-ish. Yeah. Thing I'm most proud of, mostly team-ups, collaborations, right? And it's one of those things where, they're team-ups, right? you have an idea, somebody else says something, right? And you all come together and come up with a really great idea. The lead that I'm most proud of definitely is the original Rise of Eldrazi. I think we did team up with everybody there, right? Tensman was the lead initial, and I was lead final design.
Okay.
Called it for that set. They undid that after I left, but called it developer, right? So I was lead developer on Rise of Eldrazi, and I think, successfully made a different feeling draft format, right? Battle Cruiser Magic was part of it, right?
Yeah.
Now you have 9 mana. What's going to happen? Not the same things that would happen in any other draft format was our goal, right? Tensman thinks big. That is the definition of Tensman, right? He wants to do new and big and cool and splashy, right? And then so I got to kind of receive that from him and turn it into what I think is a good draft format. I was so happy, right? Even 3, 4, not anymore, but 3, 4 years later, when you ask people, what's your favorite draft format? A lot of people still list Rise of Eldrazi, which is great.
So interesting. Yeah. The impact of that set too just continues to reverberate through Commander. The Eldrazi as a thing.
Yeah.
You talk about a really nice blending of what feels to people like Timmy and Johnny. The sort of thing that an aspirant competitive player who wants to win on his own terms can put in a deck and feel triumphant when he plays because his whole engine is put it together. And you've got the Timmy who's like, I have a thing that costs 12 mana in my deck that annihilates their board every time I attack with it. What a feeling, right? The fact that it blends those two things, and one of them is banned in Commander, it's so insane. And they've had a huge impact on all the formats. Emrakul, the Eon's Torn.
Cool. Okay,
a card that's just improbably insane. It has such a high casting cost. No one could ever get it into play, right? Except that there's, in a format where every card is legal, there's a million ways to cheat it into play. At which point you're just like, win the game on turn 3 with this enormous, insane thing.
Yeah, what you're speaking to, every Timmy wants to do that, which, by the way, Timmy is the most noble of the psychographics that Rosewater, created, and Richard, I think. Because we're all Timmy to some degree, but we got to be. But
we start as Timmy usually. I
did. And I don't think you lose it too, right? You're always that kid, right? That
it just it's just the Timmy moment just changes. Eventually, it's like, dude, I mind twisted him for 7 and brain geysered for 14 on the same turn. How amazing!
Well, some of the
Timmy moment.
So an interesting design lesson there. We wanted to do 2 things, right? We didn't want the Eldrazi to be, you just cheat it out, whether that be from your hand with, things like sneak attack or whatever, play from your hand.
Right.
We did not want that to give you full value. It still gives you a ton of value, obviously, but you didn't get the cast trigger. Then we also didn't want it to be just cast Zombify, cast Reanimation to get the value, right? So we're trying to, as you can see, those early ones, I know they've changed it, but those early ones had kind of a little bit of protection from both of those, right? With the cast trigger.
Yeah, they tend to churn to the graveyard.
Yeah, shuffle your whole graveyard in.
Yep.
Well, we debated those. We were back and forth on those. We're also back and forth on how much they should cost and how much, 2 mana sources we should put into the set, right? Ujin, Eye of Ujin, was that the land that created 2?
Yes, insane. One approach to it, right?
Yeah, right. And so we're doing a play test with some of the other non-R&D members at Wizards of the Coast. And they're playing and they see when it dies or gets discarded, it shuffles your whole graveyard back into your deck, right? Which is this beloved, maybe Timmy you would call it, but anyways, kind of more casual player desires to shuffle their deck back in, right? Because then you get to do it all again, right?
Yeah.
And they went crazy for this, being on all the 3 main Eldrazi. And so that really helped us. That was a great lesson, right? It's not something that could have occurred to me. This is a lot of splash to people, right? Maybe today it's not as much as people are more sophisticated and savvy in the Magic world, but it was a great lesson to observe those players see that and go, okay, well, maybe we're kind of accomplishing 2 goals here, right? It's got some Zombify protection, and this is actually upside to people, not downside to, a lot of more casual players. So that's part of it. How to get into good feedback loops. So much of that answer is interacting with people who are not you, putting yourself actually to the test, right? Sitting people down with your paper prototype or your new version of your video game or whatever, right? And they're playing and you're seeing they're not having fun, or they're like giving you compliments like, okay, I see what you're doing. Yeah, I can see that'd be pretty fun. Yeah, cool. Okay, well, then we messed up. If they're talking like that, we have problems, right? And
Explain
just being
that.
honest about it, right? How do you make sure you're aware when you have bad ideas?
Yeah. Can you explain that to me? You just said when they're giving you good feedback, you've messed up.
Well, sorry. Yeah, just to clarify that. I meant when they're trying to be nice. So it's good in quotes, right? Where it's like, oh, I love what you've done here. Yeah, speaking of Rise of Eldrazi, we had that happen with if you remember the levelers, Brian, right? Pay mana, and then they go through their kind of like sagas, but not as good of design, but they're cool, right? Some of those are fun. I was showing those around WotC, right? And one random marketing person, I'm like, oh, he's like, yeah, I play Magic. Oh, yeah, show it to me, right? And he gives me the feedback. He's like, oh, I love what you're doing here. I'm like, okay, well, what do you think it does? Is it confusing? Could not articulate anything other than, I love what you're doing, and you're handsome. Oh, okay, well, thanks. I don't need to be handsome. I need my cards to be fun. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah. And unfortunately, you never really know, right? You can't know. At the end of the day, you are who you pretend to be. If someone says they like it, they like it. Just go with it. So your time at WotC came to an end in 2010.
Yes.
And then you did a bunch of other really, really interesting things. Can you give me a quick little summary?
Yeah. So next, I would go work on World of Warcraft TCG. So this might have been year 3. So they'd already created the game, right? It's a Magic-like, right? It has some different mechanics that I could talk about and be kind of brutal on, right? Some big mistakes, but a lot of real goodness, right? A lot of good top-down too. When I say top-down, right, Brian, I'm talking about this card's art, the flavor of this card lines up with what it does in the game. The mechanics and the art go together well.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Did a great job of that, right? I really enjoy World of Warcraft TCG, but it was hard for newer players. And I think if you were to say, what was the biggest failure of WoW TCG?
I'm very curious to know.
Biggest failure was those mechanics were not right for somebody who's like, hey, I haven't played TCGs, but I love this IP. I love World of Warcraft, right? I know who Jaina is. I know who all these characters. I could tell you backstories on every card you put in front of me. But now you want me to take one of my cards and put it face down to be a resource, never to be replayed again. I don't want to do that. I literally would try to teach people the game who loved World of Warcraft. Be like, okay, I'll probably do your dragon because it costs 7 and we're on turn 1, so it's going to be far away. No, I don't want to row my dragon. We call it rowing, right? Turning it into a resource. I don't want to row my dragon. That's the best card I have. Okay, well, then maybe you do this card, right? No, I don't want to do that because it's also a card that I want to cast, right? So it's mechanics and like just the amount of card draw and, just complexity, et cetera. It was pretty far away from what they geniusly created for Hearthstone.
Yeah, I was
way simpler.
I wanted to sort of liken it to something that's a little bit more contemporary, actually.
Yeah.
It's funny that I read a fair amount of the zeitgeist as far as how people still experience Magic to this day. Back when you and I were learning to play, the game was unbelievably punitive when it came to the mana system, the way the mulligans worked. The original design that you and I played with was all land, no land. Eventually,
right. That was the only time you could mulligan.
All land, no land. What? Like, what is that, right? One land, you are screwed.
Right.
So eventually they realized that rule is incompatible with professional Magic. And they introduced the Paris mulligan. And then it gets continuously more sort of generous over time.
Right.
But even in modern day, as liberal as it is, as generous as it is, people still bitterly complain about the mana system. And invariably, they all basically want this modality that you're describing. This idea that cards should be playable as both a spell or a land. Every single time, that you should always be given that option. That is clearly the problem that afflicted the WoW TCG, which I believe doesn't exist anymore.
Sure.
As far as I know. And also more recently, the game Flesh and Blood, which has a very, very similar system in it. Have you played that game?
Right. It's funny. We have a bit of a connection pre-release from Flesh and Blood. We were shown the game, right? New Zealand company. We have connections to New Zealand, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, how many games that are Magic-like, or even more distant from Magic, have this any card can be a resource mechanic? I don't think it's under 100, right? Is it over 1,000? Maybe, right? Everybody's made these types of games. And what's wrong with that? Why isn't that good? Right? Hey, you can do both. More choices is better, right? Absolutely not. If you believe more choices is better, go read some books about game design. It is not true, right? There's a right amount of choices that makes it awesome, right? And also, I think another healthy way, this is a long talk too, it's choices per second, right? How much are you throwing me at once? Am I going through these peaks and valleys that are too much on my choices, right? And it's part of why Magic is genius, right? Like it is kind of autopilot. I have one land left. It's turn 3. I will play my forest. Now, which of my 2/3 drops do I want to play, right?
Right.
Later, I'm going to have way fewer choices, right? It ebbs and flows in healthy ways, I think. Magic is the best game ever, by the way. Right?
Oh, yes.
I think we'd agree on that, Brian.
I think we agree on that.
Oh, but I just cost a draw 3. Now my choices exploded again, right?
Yeah.
And of course, today's Magic's a little different because there's a lot more draw 1s on just random cards, a lot more draw 3s that are, correctly priced, or I should say, aggressively priced. Magic's still awesome, but very different than when we played.
Totally.
But anyways, getting back to the whole resource choice, more choices is better. It will paralyze people, right? When you have every card is a decision in your hand at all times at the beginning of your turn in these games, that's too much. Why do that, right? That's just too much for people.
Yeah.
It causes an overload, right? It makes the game have so many permutations that I can't feel confident that I did it right.
Bingo. That to me, that is the biggest problem of it, of all. It's just that when you're given a million permutations per turn and all of them are consequential and they all have a ripple effect, they can all snowball in one direction or the other. Even when you kind of try to do a post-game analysis, it's impossible to know when was the pivotal moment in the game. I made like 8 billion decisions. I have no idea if any of them were correct. Right. And so it's impossible for me as a human being and not a hyper-computational quantum computer that can, obviously there's a few people that can do that and their brains are hyper-specialized for whatever reason. But an average human that is multitasking about all sorts of different things will never, ever be able to feel like they have any competency at all in what they're playing. Right.
Right. And WoW TCG, I enjoy it, right? What letter do I grade do I give it? At least an A-. Like it is fun. But all the resources can draw you more cards, plus anything in your hand's a resource, right? It gets to be too much. And just to take it to Hearthstone, so Hearthstone does it as a digital game with very low bookkeeping, right? I assume most everybody's played that game, right? +1 per turn.
And you worked on Hearthstone. You worked on Hearthstone too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I got to be a lead designer on a few sets for Hearthstone. That was fun.
When were you doing that?
So let's see. I started that. I think it was 2015 to 2017. So a little over 2 years.
Okay.
Got to lead 3 sets and then work on a bunch of stuff there. Mike Elliott, who I mentioned earlier, he actually inspired that mechanic, right? So not that, I'm sure a lot of people thought of it or pondered that mechanic, right? But just +1 resource per turn. And then having kind of the range of what your deck can contain instead of being colors of mana, just be, deck building rules, right? I don't know if you played Legends, Elder Scrolls Legends has that in a different way, right? Pick 2 factions, you get to mix those together, right? A good rule, right? Simple enough, clear.
Yeah.
And then just +1 mana per turn. It works really well. That actually came from a paper game that the Dalai Lama of game design, Eric Dodds, and Ben Brode, who quite famous, people might have heard of him, awesome dude. They were inspired by a game called Battle Spirits made by Mike Elliott, who worked on Magic for probably more than 10 years.
Amazing.
And did huge numbers. Battle Spirits did huge numbers over, not his only game that did huge numbers in Japan, but over in Japan. This was essentially +1 mana per turn. A little more complex than that. It was a paper game, so the bookkeeping was a little awkward. But that inspired that system for Hearthstone. And then Hearthstone got to be just what cards can you move forward? They're highlighting in your hand. So we're answering the question for you, which ones can I play? Now what decision do you want to make? And then the sequencing of your attacks along with what you're playing, right? No main phase was genius, right? Magic's great with the main phase, right? Doesn't need upkeep, but needs all these other phases.
Yeah.
And Hearthstone kind of lets you sequence differently.
Yeah.
Right. So you're always presented with
play a thing, attack, play another thing, attack.
2 to 4 decisions each time, but sometimes they're obvious, sometimes they're not, right? Had a great ebb and flow with, well, I have a 2 drop and that's the only thing I can do. Okay, my turn's simple and perfect, right? Moving on to turn 3. Genius game. The other huge thing, it was a little bit of luck, but Hearthstone, if you remember, came into prominence at the same time that Twitch started to explode.
Yeah.
And they correctly, the geniuses that they are, right, can't give enough credit to them, right? Because they taught the world to love TCGs, right? Just so many people that weren't into it are now
millions.
Thank you so much, right?
Millions.
So I love TCGs, want everybody to enjoy them. Hearthstone looked like a video game, right? Brian, you and I played a ton of Royal Assassin and some giant tiger sitting at a table, Magic Online, with spreadsheets. It doesn't make any sense. Trust me, it's unbelievable how complex and awkward Magic Online is. Still, we played thousands of hours.
Because
it's magic and it's great.
Yeah.
Hearthstone, on the other hand, looks like a video game. Looks fun when I don't know what's going on.
Yep.
Right? Genius. They slam into each other. You
Big concussive explosions and dust rains down. And the energy and the bouncy and elasticity of it. Yeah.
Right. And people are yelling at me for the Horde, right?
Yeah.
For the Alliance. Great voice acting, right? Brings it to life.
Totally.
Oh, the game's so good.
Such an incredible game. And it's interesting because this is actually a perfect segue to something that's very near and dear to your game design heart, certainly contemporary. Something amazing grew out of Hearthstone, grew out of that incredible digital engine, the card game engine that I believe our contemporary Mike Donay and just a few other designers got a hold of and started to reshape into a game that created an entire new genre from scratch in 2019. I know that there were a few other games, I think, that were a precursor to it. I believe Dota 2 Auto Chess. But in terms of turning it into a game where you're like, this is its own thing.
Right.
This feels like a marquee product and something that can be designed iteratively forever. It was Hearthstone Battlegrounds. So tell me about your first experience, your first encounter with that game. I have stories to tell also, but you start.
Well, I was didn't know about it. It was just a few days old, and I downloaded it on my iPad, and you and I are about to get on a 13, 14-hour flight. And we're going to sleep, of course, right? Flying to New Zealand. Did not sleep at all. Started playing, totally obsessed, right? So I had played some of Auto Chess. Don't know if I played TFT. Wasn't out yet. Maybe it was. I don't remember. But anyways, it had that type of fun, right? The auto battler fun, but it was for me. Actually, Richard Garfield has this story too, right? He went crazy for it, right? Because it was a card game. You could read the cards and know what they do. One of our buddies in the Magic world and design world, Matthew Nass, right? Matt Nass, he was, I think, top 200 in the world at one point in TFT and couldn't articulate all of the mechanics of the game because it's just so baffling and confusing.
Yeah.
Compare that to Hearthstone Battlegrounds. I read the card and it does what I expect. Now, of course, it's going quickly and you might lose track, but that's part of the fun too, right? Chaos Engine, as Richard Garfield calls it.
Yeah.
Great game. But yeah, went crazy for it. Just, one of the most powerful experiences of my life of like, I got to play again, right? Even though I shouldn't.
I remember very well. The thing that I'm fond of saying is that to those who are curious, why were Matt and I on a 13-hour flight across the Pacific Ocean? We were headed to New Zealand in 2019 to attend ExileCon #1, which we were attending because Matt was actually an early investor in the game. Yeah. You were a ground level investor, I believe, in 2011, which is kind of like a quiet, cool little thing. Matt Place took out his entire 401k, all of his money that he had earned, mostly at Wizard of the Coast, drained it, paid the tax on it, and took the rest of it and invested it in our vision at Grinding Gear Games, believing in Chris and me and the rest of the team.
No regrets.
No regrets. And as a result of that, he got it on the ground floor when our valuation was very teeny tiny, roughly, I guess, 100 of what it ultimately was.
Yeah, bigger multiplier than that, believe it or not. Yeah,
something insane.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah.
We were on the way to ExileCon to go meet up with the big fan meetup. 3,000 rabid fans flown all the way across the world, basically, to attend this convention. 2 days of unbelievable panels and reminiscing in the future and everything. Matt, as an investor, not so avid PoE player, though. I don't know how many hours you've actually played of the game, but I don't think it's
embarrass me.
I'm not going to say, okay.
Max out every season.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Flying all the way around across the world, clearly very invested and interested in learning all about what's going on at Grinding Gear Games now and in the future. No, Matt spends 100% of his time on that trip, including sitting next to me in the auditorium on his phone playing Hearthstone Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
You could, at some point, I'm like, hey, Matt, let's go adventure. Let's go to Hobbiton. And you're like, dude, we can do that tomorrow. I need to play again. Sorry. Twitch, close the door.
It was a great trip to Hobbiton. Perfect weather.
We did have a great time.
Scenery you'll ever see. But yeah, super fun.
And
you drove on the wrong side of the road.
Yes.
I remember a few times to remind you.
And I believe you played Hearthstone Battlegrounds the entire time we drove down to Hobbiton. You would have played it walking around Hobbiton if it were possible, but I don't think they had internet.
Well, Brian, let me just throw this back at you. You and I share this, right? How many of our waking hours in 94, 95, 96 was playing Magic and thinking about Magic?
I know, believe me, I know what it feels like to be addicted to something game related. Yeah. It's happened to me a dozen times in my life. So watching you experience Hearthstone Battlegrounds compelled me to try it too as soon as I got home. I'm like, if Matt is this addicted to this game, clearly I need to play it also. I got addicted. My son, who was 7 at the time, got addicted.
Oh, yeah. And even though your son was 7 or 8 when I had the conversations about Hearthstone Battlegrounds with him, unbelievable how well he understood the game. Like, had to be better than 99.9% of people. And I'm not saying that to compliment him. True genius, unbelievable. Yeah.
So I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean,
did he understand it better than me? Yes.
Insane. Yeah. My son's name is Desmond, for those curious. Des is objectively a genius. He's just amazing. And particularly aligned to games and singing, actually. Anyway, getting back to the game. As far as I know, shortly after you got back home from that trip, the wheels started turning. You and I started having conversations about an idea that you had. You said, this is compelling. This is powerful. I want to take a stab at it. So tell me what happened afterward.
So this is a few months before the pandemic. We could look it up, right? But I feel like it was 4 months before. And I started working on a paper TCG where I wanted to explore some of the auto battler. Never really got there with it, right? So the chaos engine part of an auto battler, somewhat hard to replicate. I'm sure somebody could do it. I'd love to play that game in a paper game. So then started chatting with a few buddies. Josh Uderleighton, I think 2010, 2011, back-to-back player of the year for Magic. And again, Matt Nass, Combo King, just won a Pro Tour last year, right? Very skillful, intelligent guy. And we started chatting about making an auto battler being inspired by Hearthstone Battlegrounds, right? But with some new innovations, right? Like the front row, back row. So the positioning matters a little bit more. Hearthstone Battlegrounds positioning definitely matters. It's kind of interesting though. This is, talking about 30 minutes ago, intuition. What is a player's kind of expectation? Oh, well, what does it really matter where I put all my guys in the single line, right? They're all in the front row in Battlegrounds. What does it matter? It's not obvious to you in the beginning, right? Yep. If you guys know Battlegrounds, obviously it matters a ton, but it's not obvious. So we wanted to make it matter a bit more and have that be kind of lined up with people's intuition. So we made a front row, back row. And then that opened up new mechanic design space, right? Support. Oh, this back row character can affect characters in front of it while it's alive. Oh, okay, well then attacking the back becomes a cool counterplay to that.
Yep.
But yeah, learned a lot from Donay and friends making Battlegrounds. Wanted to make a game that was dedicated to it. Part of what we saw the potential was, how can Battlegrounds be so good when Mike Donay, 95% of the cards were the same exact text box as in Hearthstone proper.
Amazing, right?
Which was also genius, right? Because he didn't want that learning curve. He wanted everybody to come in and go, oh, this card that I know, from Hearthstone, what's the Murloc Bluegill, I think, right? That makes a token, right? A 2/1 for 2 that makes a 1/1 token, does exactly the same thing.
Yep.
One of the best cards you could take on turn 1, right? Back in the day. So genius, right? Got everybody in. Then he started mixing up the card file, and they've, taken it to a whole bunch of new places, obviously now, whatever it is, 7 years later. Couldn't we do something if we're not having to follow that rule, right? Of, hey, we want this to be right for Hearthstone players and they use all those cards that they already have. What if we designed from the ground up a whole bunch of cards? So that was inspiring to us, right? So we made Storybook Brawl.
Hang on, you jumped ahead way too quick.
Okay, yes.
There's so much in between there. I'd love to know how you guys went about building the game. I actually watched it kind of evolve over the years. You were still living, I believe, down in Tacoma at the beginning of that. So you and I would hang out every now and then. And you had been working, if I remember, on a physical paper card game right before that you kind of, you shelved in order to focus on, that God's Rising. That's right. And I enjoyed playing that game with you. It was fun to kind of see it evolve.
It was fun. I had trouble making it not too complex, right? Speaking of the kind of dangers, right? Heavily inspired by Netrunner, kind of a different take on the runner's runs in that game, but both people would run on each other. I miss playing it. I had a blast playing it.
You can always revisit it someday, right? It's still waiting. Apparently on that subject, you know that Mark, and I hope I'm not spoiling this, although it'll actually it'll debut after the Vegas tournament anyway. Mark is
he's showing it off this weekend, I think.
Yeah, he's bringing Mood Swings finally. Yeah. I remember playtesting Mood Swings with Mark way back during the Pro Tour days.
Oh yeah, 20 years ago maybe?
25, more than that. Like in 1997 or 8 or something. So
yeah, he's been wanting to make it. Yeah, that's great for him, right? Feel good that he's finally got to do that. That's
totally.
Awesome.
So your game will always be waiting in the wings. But as far as Storybook Brawl itself went, the game that you guys, and I'm not sure when you ultimately called it that, but I'd like to know really what the iterative process was behind creating this auto battler. How did you guys do this? Because I cannot emphasize enough to the audience that people all around this city and elsewhere who I deeply respect as game design intellects, people who have worked at all the biggest Steam companies, they all have a common theme when they talk about auto battlers. They all talk about Storybook Brawl. This game, the game that I described as the greatest game that you've never heard of, has an amazing story that ripples through all sorts of different things that go beyond gaming. So when did it start to coalesce? What did it feel like? I'd like to hear what it felt like when you went from design to like, wait, this game actually is starting to feel special. Tell me about that.
So kind of the origin story of Storybook Brawl is Josh Uter-Layton and Matt Nass fly out to Washington and we hang out for a week or two. I forget how long it was. I feel like it was a while. And literally at the end of that trip, we're hearing about flights getting messed up and the pandemic, we might be locked down. So it was exactly then when you start to hear about that, right? February, I think, of that year.
Crazy time.
Yeah, crazy time, obviously. And we had worked together on a few other games, Elder Scrolls Legends, beloved by people. I would have people tell me it's their favorite game of all time. I didn't work much on it. Matt Nass, I believe, was the lead designer. Josh, I know, worked a ton on it. And it's super fun if you got to play it. You know what I'm talking about. I think you got shut down totally. Maybe you can still play it. Heavily inspired by Hearthstone, but has lanes. And then, of course, the flavor of Bethesda's Morrowind, etc.
Yeah.
All those games. What am I trying to say? Those games are part of a
Elder Scrolls.
Elder Scrolls. Thank you. Yeah, I said it in the name earlier. Yeah. And yeah, super fun. I got to do some system design on that. And then I helped out with maybe set one, but not really, right?
Okay.
But anyways, we worked together on Eternal and something else very sad called Bacon, the predecessor to Legends of Runeterra. And I won't say who, but yes, they made Legends of Runeterra, canceling our version of the game. Very sad day. We all cried together. Later, one of their high ups said, yeah, maybe we should just make your game. I mean, maybe we should. But anyways, Legends of Runeterra I had a ton of fun with. And I think at one point, Josh got to be one of the pro players for that and was top 3 in the world with that. But anyways, amazing. Josh, also somebody would describe as, genius level intellect, made Hatball one of the most fun things you could do. If you know what I'm talking about, you know how fun it is. Hatball's so fun.
I need to
Josh, the whole team deserves credit. Josh deserves most of the credit. So fun, right, Brian?
Yeah, I honestly need to memorialize that. I need a artist rendering of Hat and Ball that I can just put on my wall. Anybody who's ever played Storybook Brawl will walk in and be like, oh my God, I remember.
So fun.
I still dream.
So fun. Listen. Yeah. And so they hung out for 2 weeks, and either right while he was still there in Washington or soon after, Josh, who's an engineer and a game designer, he had a prototype for us. So we were getting to experience that front row, back row, kind of seeing some of our designs. That first, day or 3, rudimentary, but then Matt Nass would change kind of the cards, the decks, and we would play test and iterate. Do we have something in front of us, right? And we've talked some about why we were doing it, right? Because we saw how fun Battlegrounds was. There's a list of kind of pillars of inspiration and game design philosophy there, right? That I think really applied to Storybook Brawl. That, right, one is, hey, we've seen an example of this. Can we take it to the next level, right? They had their hands tied behind them. Not to say that Battlegrounds wasn't just S tier fun.
Totally.
But like I was talking about, they had their hands tied behind them in some ways. What if we didn't? What could we do, right? What if it was from the ground up? And then some of our philosophies, right? So game balance in a paper game like Magic sometimes comes first, right? When I first started working at Wizards, my job was a playtester, basically, right? Game balance, right? Switched over the years, kind of flipped to the initial design side. But that was my job in the beginning.
Yep.
And kind of understanding for Storybook Brawl, that's not at the top of this, pyramid of what matters, right? At the top is what should be, which is fun. And then right below that can be balanced, right? Below that's other things, right? Kind of the story integration, right? Other things, replayability, time to play, right? All these things are subservient to one thing, which is fun. Well, what does that mean? You could have things that are quote unquote imbalanced, right? That maybe 80% of your players would go, oh my God, the RNG, the imbalance of this is terrible. okay, well then why are you loading up a game immediately afterwards if it's so bad, right?
Got him.
And it's really not fair, right? If you've had hat ball going for 4 turns and I'm struggling to get my first triple, it's not very fair, right? But
Right.
I can just start a new game, right? So kind of that inspiration and pillars, which I, by the way, did not understand my first 4 or 5, 6 years at Wizards, right? I was kind of in that too cool for school, pro player. Why make a card if it's not good enough for my deck, right?
Yeah.
Hate that perspective now, but that was absolutely me, right? Incorrectly. So I had leveled up enough, whatever that is, 15, 20 years into my design career, right? When we're working on Storybook Brawl. And then, and then just play testing, iterating, just trying to eke out every bit of fun, throwing away, being willing to throw things away, right? It's super important. It's like, oh, we thought this would matter. We thought this was important. It's not. And let's just accept that and move on. And, play testing with friends, right? Getting feedback, believing them, right?
When did the game actually formally kind of release? I remember feeling like it went through a long period of time. I was helping you kind of beta test it for a long time. And I don't remember if it actually had a formal release. I know you guys kind of gradually built up momentum on Steam.
2021 is my memory. But yeah, of course, from my perspective, I remember Mike Turian played a ton, gave us a bunch of feedback. Somebody who's still over there at Wizards, hopefully get to see him in Vegas. He's awesome. He was my roommate for years. Great dude.
Oh, Mike Turian. Yeah, you guys have. Yeah, Mike Turian's still there, still presiding over the game everyone loves so much.
Yeah, and at one point he was, I think, easily would have been voted the best limited player on the planet. So skillful. So 2021. So we were pretty quick to get in front of other people to start getting feedback. And then we launched on Steam, and we knew we wanted to bring it to phone. So it was not phone or tablet. We had a working version on the tablet. We could show it off that way.
Yeah.
That was not something that the public could have. So it was Steam only for basically everybody. But then we had aspirations, right? So we want to make it for phone. And then, of course, a lot of this story is the bittersweet part where FTX gets excited about us and buys us and gives us all this funding, right? Where we hire
I just
team designers.
I just got to cut you off for just a second.
Okay.
Just contextually, the way that you sort of gloss over that specific event, it is something that's so ridiculous and improbable. I don't want to go too much into the details of that, but I do know my understanding is that Luis Scott Vargas came on board your team. Originally, he was a big fan of the project. He was obviously knows all you guys. We have a long-term relationship,
right?
But he was also a huge fan of Storybook Brawl. I remember logging into YouTube one day, and there was a streaming tournament going on that he was doing commentary for. I went, wow, it's really gotten pretty big. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. So what happened after Luis got involved? Just give me like a quick rundown. People have heard of FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. There are documentaries about it and stuff. This relates to your project, which is insane.
Right. Yeah. So if you want the super fast single sentence, Sam Bankman-Fried buys our game and then shuts it down. Great, thanks. So LSV, Luis Scott Vargas, right? Great friend, right? We were buddies back when we all worked in Denver together, along with Josh and Matt Nass, and super good friends with both of those guys too. They all live close to each other. I recruited a lot of those guys to come work with me in Denver, and then I left. But anyways, they're also there in Denver, and great dudes, So Luis joined the team. Luis had already been working. His podcast had been sponsored by FTX. So anyways, that's part of the
interesting. I didn't know that.
Knows SBF since they were kids. So it's kind of how we got connected. And then Sam, I think, had 700 hours when we first checked his Steam account. Yeah, so he'd been playing tons and tons.
I wanted to just, it's funny how in the zeitgeist believed that Sam Bankman-Fried was sitting in on all these important meetings with top tier executives from Blackstone and BlackRock, and they're having these somber conversations about $500 million injections into the company. And everyone's like, can you believe it? He was such a genius that he could do that and also play League of Legends at the same time. But the data proved otherwise, didn't it? He wasn't playing League of Legends.
I could know for sure he was playing Storybook Brawl. Yes.
We'll leave it at that. But regardless, it is a tragedy, right? The game is ultimately purchased by FTX. And then within just a couple of months after you guys had relocated your entire art team apparently to the Bahamas, which is nuts. Well,
sort of. Yeah, we were mostly work from home, right? But a little bit of that, just there's a lot of details there. But essentially, we were building up the studio, had great plans, right? Knew that we wanted to bring either that game or there was a way to do this on phone that would be amazing, right? We knew that we wanted to have the best art, right? So we had Blizzard folks, and it was going to be amazing. Yeah, and we had all the funding we needed, so we were very excited, and of course that got shut down. Yeah.
So
sad.
Yeah, it is sad, actually. It's really, it makes me sad every time I think about it. I mean, and there's so many different reasons for that, right? Not only just the blow to you guys, but also the fact that the world cannot enjoy this masterpiece, this masterstroke, the best game you've never heard of.
Right.
However, there's a consolation prize, and I'd like to talk about that next. Tell me about Galaxy. How did Galaxy come to be?
So Galaxy is the game that I'm currently working on. Don't know if you can read the shirt. That's my dog, is one of the cards in the game.
Cute. Once Upon a Galaxy.
So Galaxy also heavily inspired by Battlegrounds, right? The same space of what if you took a auto battler and said, hey, you can do, and there's some cool things that auto battlers do for TCGs. What if you took an auto battler and made it a phone game? Right? So why do that? Why is that a good thing to do? So one of the things that's challenging, and I'm sure, Brian, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anybody who's played Magic Arena or Hearthstone on your phone, Hearthstone Battlegrounds or Hearthstone proper, the cards are too small, right? You get into this space of like, I'm kind of getting a headache because I'm trying to manage everything. I misclicked because I got to find this one little card, with my, where's my finger? It could be a nightmare.
Yeah.
And one of the things that auto battlers, these chaos engines, do so well is they remove a lot of that upkeep, both mental and procedural upkeep that you have to do in Arena or these other games, right? That's just kind of too much for most people on a phone. Auto battlers, you don't choose blocks. You don't have to respond to your opponent, right? There's not a pass window, right? Even though I think Magic's the best game ever, these are not good for a phone game, right?
Right.
I still play Magic on the phone, but it's just not the best way to play Magic. So we wanted to take away a lot of that, right? Rolling and seeing a whole new set of cards is, all the way from back in the day, certainly in Battlegrounds, but also in TFT and Auto Chess, right? I'm going to roll a whole bunch. Did I find the one card I needed this turn, right? I've got to read all the cards, glance at them. I'm on a timer.
Can you explain that a little bit better? I think that if people haven't played a game like this, explain the difference between Galaxy's system and quote unquote rolling in a traditional auto battler shop.
Right. So if you know drafting games, right, you can even compare it to, a football draft, right? You have some choices in front of you, and then you can take some of them, right? And in Auto Chess and Hearthstone Battlegrounds, they cost an amount of gold, right? Battlegrounds had a smart thing too. Everything costs 3. It was kind of interesting, right? We broke that with Storybook Brawl. But do I want any of these? And if you don't want anything, from this group of 3 to 7 cards that's presented to you, you can spend one resource to get a whole new set. I'm totally cool with that, right? Do I love games like that? Absolutely. We learned while working on Storybook Brawl and observing Battlegrounds, this is actually overwhelming. If you think about it, we were talking earlier, a while back, Brian, about permutations. How many possible paths are there for my turn? What are the combinatorics? When you can roll and there's, let's say, 5 cards being presented to you and you have 11 resources, right? Well, that's, at minimum, you could say, if I'm only going to take 1 card, that's 5 times 11 choices that I could either lock in or grab, right?
Yep.
Well, of course, I don't just buy 1 card. And I've been stuck on this decision that I decided to roll. And now I've got only 10 seconds left and I got to make my decision real quick, right?
Yep.
Well, what if instead you're on the phone and you only had 3 or 4 choices and nothing cost resources and there was no way to reroll? Did we just take away the whole game? Did we just ruin it? Did we take away all your decision making? Turns out no.
Yeah, I remember when you pitched that to me initially, and the thing that was the most similar to me that kind of gave me at least a little bit of faith in it was the fact that that's how you draft when you draft Arena on Hearthstone, which lots and lots of people play, right? You don't have a resource in that other than the 30 picks. You pick a card, we're on to the next shop.
Right.
And there's no way to
Which we were
backtrack.
inspired by on our drafting game in our single player asynchronous drafting game in Eternal. If people played that, what was it called? Forge,
Forge, which
fun.
I played a ton.
Yeah, super fun.
Yeah, Forge.
And it's surprising too that Forge was good, and I would compare Galaxy to Forge in that way. That competitive people like you, Sam Party, if people know him, super good at games, right? Got top 2 at Worlds.
Yeah,
recently top 8 at Worlds.
First, I
and
think.
some other pro tour, right? Very good.
Win? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's
I think
incredible.
it's Seth Manfield. I think I'm wrong Seth.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, Sam works on Galaxy, also friends with all the guys I've been mentioning. Great dude. The compliment I like to give him, this is how I presented him to Richard Garfield, actually. He has the very best combination of skill times niceness. Number 1 in the world. For Magic the Gathering. But anyways, super nice guy. So his buddy and him, of course, right? You know, me, competitive people were really into this, even though it sounds like we removed all these key decision pieces.
Yeah.
And this is where it comes back to a concept I mentioned earlier, which is decisions per second. It's not decisions per decision or decisions per click, right? The way I experience the world is by time, right? As time goes on, how am I doing? Well, the great thing about taking away the rolling and the cost per card and all that, right? Making it more like Arena and Hearthstone, the Arena draft, is once I make my decision, my next one is instantly presented to me, right? And once I'm done with the shopping phase, right? Once I'm done picking cards, then I'm presenting with a battle that's kind of fun to watch. Even though I'm not technically making decisions, I'm still thinking about my future decisions, right? Were my characters in the right spot when all the dominoes started to fall?
Yeah.
I got to get rid of this guy. It's way too undersized now. Look how big other characters are in the lobby. I got to replace this right away. Even though it's got implied value, I can't. It's too risky, right? Yep. Just all those thoughts that are happening to you. It's gameplay, even though you're not making clicks during the battle.
Exactly.
Right? So kind of appreciating that with Galaxy. Yeah.
You mentioned actually time, which is another thing that I think is a big differentiator between the 2 games that you've made. And one of the things that you and I discussed initially that was sort of so oddly improbable about the whole auto battler genre in general, particularly Hearthstone Battlegrounds, is that there's this whole period of time, every single turn often, and particularly when you're good at the game, where you're doing nothing but watching a rope burn very slowly across the screen.
Right.
All the way to the end, and you have to do it every single time. And yet the gameplay is so addictive and compelling that people are still tolerant of that. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
You're literally watching a rope burn, and that's a huge part of your experience. Right. You guys had that exact same mechanic in Storybook Brawl. There was a duration for your turn and a sense of frantic panic. And it got really crazy when, in some rare circumstances, you got an unbelievably large amount of gold, and you could both roll and play, and then you'd have extremely, frantic APM turns. Well, you did away with that completely with this phone game. The phone version doesn't have a time component at all.
Right. So why is it still appealing to some of the top competitive players while not being live PvP? How does that work out?
How'd you solve that?
Yeah, I think that's important to identify. And I bet there's, a lot of ways to amplify. Richard Garfield's talking about, ways to kind of go, hey, that tool could be something in other games, which I agree with him. I can't wait to see what those games are. But and by the way, how great is that, right? Richard Garfield, kind of like the king of our world, right? He made Magic, right? He plays Galaxy. It just feels awesome.
I imagine I'm jealous. I'm jealous. He hasn't played my game yet at all.
Your game,
in the next couple months.
He was a Dream Quester too, right? Peter Whalen's game.
Yeah, I think Richard will like Reclusion a lot, honestly.
Yeah.
I think he'll enjoy it.
Dream Quest, by the way, just to give props to Peter. Peter and I would butt heads, by the way, right? He tripped me in the halls and all that. But
you're talking about Peter Whalen, the guy who made Dream Quest, who you worked alongside with.
Right. We butted heads, but there is no doubt he's also deserves these accolades, right? Genius level game designer. And Dream Quest is new genre creation. If you think Slay the Spire did it, it's not true.
Nope.
It was Dream Quest. And the Slay the Spire people would agree with you, by the way. But anyways, so no timer is interesting, right? I think we all want no timer, right? We don't want to sit there and watch a rope burn, which we did directly copy in Storybook Brawl. It's one of those things too, Brian, when you go back to, Champions Edition and Street Fighter, it's slow. It's slow, right? You feel the slowness, right? Or if you ever played, I don't know if many people get this anymore, but EverQuest or any class in an MMO that has a speed buff, like the Bard. And then you try to play a class that does not have a speed buff. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's just like, oh, my guy's running through molasses. I can't do this. I got to switch back to a character that has a speed buff. Anyways, I kind of feel that, right? I go back to Battlegrounds and I watch the rope burn and I'm like, this isn't right. This isn't what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, where's my phone? Yeah, exactly.
I still love Battlegrounds, but it's also a little complex for me and hard to get back into. But anyway, so how did we do that? I think it's quite interesting that we still won with, Sam's buddies, who are some of the best Magic players, test with LSV and all these other pros. And they got into it. One of his buddies had 602 games, I think, or victories in the first month.
Victories, not games, victories.
Victories. And that is hard to do the math on. Like, how do you have enough time in a month?
It's like 1,800 to 2,000 games, probably.
Right. Yeah. Even if you're winning half of them.
I know.
Right?
It's
like still a ton of time to play 1,200 games in a month. Right now, just to boast. Is that okay to do on your podcast?
Please boast away. It's not boasting. It's not boasting. You're just
it's bragging. That's right. You're right. It's bragging.
Neither.
Hafu and Dog, but much more Hafu. Two of the best streamers of Hearthstone, right?
Most successful and most well-known, for sure. Beloved, both of them.
They did McDonald's commercials. So obviously they are at the top of this, whatever this is, right? The influencer space for the games that we like to create. Hafu has been top 2 in our leaderboard the last 2 months.
Grinding it like 24/7.
Playing tons of games, yeah. And she actually did some of the commentary for some of the other games I got to work on. She was just so, she hands down of all the people that we paid to kind of play the game, knew the game the best. Kibler's another person who you would put in that category of oh my gosh, they just understand these games incredibly deeply, right?
Totally.
Often, sometimes, embarrassingly so, where you're like, oh yeah, we should have thought of that. They thought of it instantly when they saw the card file, and we didn't think of it working on the card file for 9 months. But anyways, so you take away the rope, you take away rolling, you take away so many decisions per shop. Why is it still appealing to a competitive player? And I think a few of the answers are kind of that decision per time, right? I don't need 19 decisions right now. I need to not run out of decisions, or not to suddenly not care anymore or feel hopeless, right? So I draft a card and immediately I get a new pick, right? Or even though my opponent, right? So the PvP concept, right? I'm not facing live players. For a lot of people, that will make a game boring, right? Street Fighter, again, one of our shared games. Do you want to go play against the computer? Yeah, I actually do enjoy that a bit, but it's nothing like the replayability of PvP Street Fighter. Not even close. Not even 21, I would argue, right? Well, we're doing something unique, which is Super Auto Pets did it, but we're doing it a little bit differently. It is asynchronous combat against real players. So one of the ways I like to describe it is we're a card game, but in the car games, right? So like Forza, these other, Xbox racing games, if we're friends, you can kind of share with me your time trial, and I can race against it, even though you did it yesterday. Yep. Your ghost car will be in my race, and I can see how you took the turn. I can see that you're beating me or I'm beating you. And it does feel like I'm facing you. You know what I'm saying, Brian? Like, you are there. You did do that turn that way. And I can't bump you, right? Which is very much like what it is in Galaxy, where you are facing, right? So if I do face you, I actually face Patrick Chapin, if people know that. Phenomenal, prolific writer and Magic player, PT winner, Worlds winner, maybe
Worlds runner-up twice,
second place of Worlds,
and Hall of Famer, most importantly.
Yeah. Anyways, I face him a bunch in Galaxy, but it really does feel like I'm facing him, even though in that case I know who he is, P. Chapin. But a human being did make this board, did decide to put their pirate in slot 1 and their Anubis in slot 5, right? They did make these decisions, and they did outplay me in a way, even though that's from the past and my board is going to get saved into the future. It feels real enough that I have that PvP feel still.
I think that there's a really interesting dimension to this too. It actually relates to, I'll just sort of comment on my own psyche about what it feels like to play different auto battlers, but specifically the difference between Storybook Brawl and Galaxy. When you played Storybook Brawl, for 2 different reasons. One, the structure of the board, the 4 guys in front, 3 in the back,
right,
made this situation sometimes where there'd be a unit on the back line that your units just refuse to attack, and the unit would just devastate your whole team because you keep forking your attacks to the non-dangerous enemies, which was massively tilting. But the other reason that was tilting was because you knew there was someone on the other side of the world going, oh yes, that's the 3rd time you've missed my shadow assassin, and now I win. And the idea that you're losing in real time to a person makes the defeats in that game a lot more tilting and kind of soul crushing.
Right.
When you lose in Galaxy, it doesn't feel anything the same, even though you know that was a person's team.
Right.
It doesn't injure it doesn't hurt your ego at all the same. It's not nearly as tilting. So you get all of the plus side, you get all the fun, and you don't have those feel bad moments. I think that's one of the reasons why players like Hafu have been grinding the game incessantly. She has something like 600 wins. It's surreal to me, honestly, just externally. Hafu is the reason why I started caring about Magic Arena. I used to watch Hafu on my trips out to New Zealand in like 2013, 14 and stuff. I would stay up late at night watching Hafu play Arena. It was awesome. So the idea that she's playing and clearly loves your game is just wonderful kismet. I love it. Love to hear it. Yeah.
It feels great. Yeah.
So what's
by the way, kudos to the team, right? Million Dreams Games, right? Parney and Alexis, who has she worked on more Magic sets than me?
Yeah, maybe. Winner of the Great Designer Search, the very first one, right?
Yeah. First Great Designer Search, first place victory through that $50,000 nightclub party for her, where we all just stood against the wall. Anyways, a long time ago, but very cool. Nerds at a techno party. So skillful. And by the way, so lucky. We have people that get the game design, but are also doing other roles, right? Makes an indie company like ours work.
Yeah.
Back in those early days, we're considering radical things like no rolling. Like I was saying, be willing to like, hey, what if we did this radically different thing, right? What if we threw out what we know to be good? And by the way, when we would show off Storybook Brawl, it kind of taught us this. So I would go to game stores where people are playing Magic, right? Commander, whatever. And so these people know TCGs. They know what it means to read a text box on a card and what the implications are. And consistently, we would get people who would start playing, take those first few turns, giving us feedback, try not to talk too much as us, right? Want to hear what they have to say. And then we get to turn 6, 7, 8, 9 and stop reading, right? And it totally makes sense in hindsight, right? Even though I'm like, these people know that they need to draft the best card. They know they need to roll to get better stuff. They've done Magic drafts. No, not willing to do it. And it's because it's a total overload of information when you're in your first 30 minutes of playing a game.
Absolutely, yeah.
Every roll is showing you potentially 5 new cards, 7 new cards. What are you going to do? Read all those? Is this some book learning game? Or like, I'm not here to read an entire book just to make one decision on it, buying a card. So we started to get that kind of learning of like, hey, it is not, right? It's not necessarily upside for even people who are into complex games like Magic to have all this information put in front of you at once.
Yeah. There's a quote that I've repeated a number of times, actually, that was said by the last person I talked to on this channel, Darth Microtransactions. And he said that he often has this experience when he logs in to play a new game that's been recommended to him. And he has this point of friction and often an off-ramp in the first couple of minutes. He described it as, I'm just tired. I'm tired. It's like, I understand that there's a lot to learn. There's definitely a lot to enjoy here. I can see that someone put a lot of time and work into this, but I'm tired, man. I've been thinking and doing hard things all day, and I kind of want to just chill on my phone and have a good time. I think that Galaxy is beyond perfect for that niche of gaming.
Awesome.
It is exactly that experience. It's like, I play it when I'm tired, literally. I lie down in bed. I pop out my iPad. I play some games of Galaxy. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 4 or 5. And it's just the perfect amount, and I can come and go as I please. There's no time pressure. I can take as much time as I want to consider if I really want to feel strong and strategic and I've got some more calculating juice to spend, it'll let me do it. And sometimes I'm just like, nope, just going to draft quick and have a good time. It fills both of those roles perfectly. And I really think it's a masterwork. I think somehow, improbably, your team hit it out of the park twice in a row, Matt.
Nice.
I'm curious to know, what is the future of the game? What does it look like in 2026? What's coming?
Great question. Yeah. So as of recording this, we are just a few days, potentially 2 days, if everything goes as planned, from launching our 3rd set. And so it's Mythbound is the name of the set. It explores some new mechanics, right? So in the effort to make it as easy as you just talked about, there was design space that we intentionally held off on, right? So we wanted to, in the first set, right, the core, kind of, okay, what is the fun of an auto battler? What have we not seen in any auto battler that we could add in that would be easy for people to get, right? I think probably the best example, would you agree with this, is well, taking away rolling and whatnot helped do that, but is slot buffs, right? So slot buffs are essentially, you got 5 positions on the board to put your characters. You can buff those slots, so whoever's there is getting that bonus. So if a slot has +5/+5, put a 10/10 there, it'll be a 15/15.
Right.
Turns out this is crazy fun.
Yep.
And gives a bunch of texture and depth to your decisions, right? Who do I want to have be buffed? Right, Brian, you will know what I'm saying when I say, oh, my biggest slot is where I put my goodie bag, right? Because it gets the buff twice, sometimes thrice, right? Sometimes 4 times. Super fun to make those decisions, but I also want to put a hunt character there because that might be better. Wait, right? There's all these things to kind of ponder, which is good. But also it just, when I'm new to the game, it's like, oh, cool, my characters are bigger. Oh, and it's permanent? Doesn't matter if I swap out a new character, I still have the bonus. Super fun, right?
Yeah, I wanted to just mention on the subject of permanence too. I think another thing that you guys did, another solution that you found, which is fundamentally intuitive that doesn't exist in Hearthstone Battlegrounds at all, is that any buff to any unit at any point is a permanent buff. It doesn't matter whether it happens during the recruit phase or whether or not it happens in combat, which is so awesome, honestly, because growing an immense monster in combat only to have it shrink back down to a 2/2 kind of feels bad. It's like, wait, where did my team go?
Yeah. And I love it when people, when they go, oh, I didn't even know that, right? They're in their second week of playing the game. I'm like, wait a second, the Jack that jumps out of the Jack in the Box, he's bigger permanently because he got a bonus somehow.
How did that happen?
It's fun. And it's that space too, Brian, that we try to kind of have be a guiding light for us, which is what, if we have a rule decision, right? Should we go left or right or whatever? What would be more fun for the active player, the person who owns this card, right? The person who's making the decision to play this card or is watching their card do something. Which rule would be more fun for them? We try to do that as much as we can. Obviously, can't always, right? Sometimes the game just has to be balanced or make sense. But this was one of those, right? Like, what if just tokens kept their buffs permanently?
Just try it, right?
And,
crazy idea.
And then when they show up in the shop later, when they're actually a draftable character,
they're big.
They can show up gigantic in your shop because cards like Goodie Bag do permanent buffs, right? And some cards consistently summon. Anyways, we can get into the weeds there, but that's been a fun mechanic. For the future, you were asking about, we have a lot that we want to do. We have a new deck builder coming out. I think I might have shown you screenshots of it, Brian, but you're going to be thankful that we have the new deck builder. It's so much better. Search. Is that pretty good? Deck builders. And then we've, I'm talking about deck builder before you start a game, right?
Yeah,
so
not a separate game, but this is a
deck. Kind of like on the Snap. Yeah. Oh, that's another innovation with this game. I'm not sure. Are there other auto battlers that do this? I'm sure there are, but I haven't played them. You do deck building like you would in Marvel Snap or Magic to then go play a drafting auto battler. So we've kind of combined 3 distinct genres all into one, and it works, I think.
Yeah. That's sort of, I guess that's sort of the core to an extent of one of the main things that drives people to play the game for long periods of time is that you're building a card collection that you can then take into the next fight with you. You can modify your starter cards so that you have access to cards in a particular cards in a pool that your opponents may not even have. And some of those units have great synergy with the particular hero that you choose, but you're the only guy who has them. A great example is the mighty Hercules. And on the subject of things persisting across combat, Hercules is a great example of this. He's this rare, basically, he's a legendary that you have to unlock. You don't start with him. But as soon as you get Hercules on a particular captain that is good for it, Jack Sparrow is the best example, you get to have this totally novel version of the game where the whole game is like, let's get Hercules and make him unbelievably enormous.
Great example of us putting fun of a balance. So how many balance complaints have we got about Hercules? Hundreds. Thousands, right? 1.03 to the E complaints.
Yep. Appropriately.
It's not so big as stats can get. So he, we have a few counterplays that people learn kind of so they get better at the game, right? He's not in a lot of deck lists when you're at the top of the game, but when you're kind of in that transition to learning the game, totally insane. But it's super fun to watch him go crazy. I'll give you a little spoiler. His young version when he was a little kid is in the next set.
Oh boy, I'm excited.
Crazy for different reasons. Taking advantage of one of the new mechanics of Boon, which is kind of quest meets treasure meets something else. Different booms. The boon will explode into rewards. It's kind of fun of exploding treasure chests. But anyways, lots of new stuff in the new set. So we want that fun, want that craziness, and part of our philosophy is, and this is great part of balance with roguelikes, and Magic the Gathering, you could argue, is one of these. League of Legends is one of these, right? Roguelikes are this. My game is going crazy. That's okay. I'm going to start over eventually and start with 1 again, the numeral 1 again, right? Start back to core, right? Balatro, another great example of this.
Oh, yeah.
Go totally nuts, but now you're starting a new game and you kind of reset, right?
Yep.
Well, if you're going to reset, how crazy can we let you go? Well, there is no limit. Let's just go totally crazy, because what can go wrong? You won the lobby. Everybody go play again. That person got first. Somebody else got second.
Yeah. As I mentioned before, the only thing that goes wrong when you have the Balatro experience in Once Upon a Galaxy, when you start getting crazy exponential things going on, is that the game has to end. That's the only way that that's a feel bad. It's over. Wait,
yes.
I just hit E to the 38.
Brian, that is definitely your biggest complaint about the game.
It is my biggest complaint.
Dozens of times.
I want to keep going, man. What a problem to have. On that subject, we cannot keep going forever. Matt, it has been such an unbelievable pleasure chatting with you today.
Yeah.
And I really think that many people in the audience, whether they've played games, whether they've ever thought about designing games, whether they've ever thought about making it their career in their life, could benefit tremendously from your wisdom and insight and your humor and everything you brought to the table. As your very longtime friend, you and I have been friends for over 30 years at this point. It has always been an experience of gratitude and awe. So thank you so much for coming on to chat with me today. And I really look forward to another conversation down the road.
Awesome, dude. Thank you, Brian.
All right, I'll see you. I would love your feedback on this series. If you're enjoying the videos, please give me a thumbs up. If there's games you think I might have missed, please recommend them and I will get to them. See you for the next one.